Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 10 of the anime series Kantai Collection, KanColle. And I gotta say from right out of the gate, this was a really enjoyable episode once again for me, and I can already kind of perceive there are probably people out there who didn't quite enjoy it, who may have actually been upset with it. You know, everything from Fubuki's sort of change, her upgrade not being quite as dramatic as we saw Yudachi's being in the previous episode, and just sort of the themes and elements that were being focused on in this particular episode. I could see certain people not being fulfilled with it that much, and maybe coming off it and being like, this was a waste of time. But I really felt like this was an enjoyable episode for all of its emotive elements, and you know, the spotlight is most certainly on Fubuki throughout this episode, because she's very much, you know, obsessed with the idea of upgrading, and sort of process of that upgrade effect is having to reach another level, much as we saw at the start of the previous episode with Yudachi. She was glowing on the beach and everything like that, and she was kind of stunned by that. It kind of doesn't make sense that everyone was stunned by it. I mean, you know, a couple of the younger characters, I guess, who haven't gone through that makes kind of sense and everything, but it seemed to be like a new thing to encounter. And so this episode, we're basically seeing Fubuki throwing herself, giving her all to just training. I mean, she's even walking past Akagi and completely being oblivious to her kind of, you know, that's not her focus at the moment. She really wants to be able to live up to all of the perceptions and the expectations of people around her, knowing, you know, through basically Nagato's telling her what the plans the Admiral had for her, sending her back to the Naval District and everything like that. You know, much as I said in the previous episode discussion video, it was all about sending her back and getting her upgraded, because apparently the Admiralty feels she is going to be just the exceptional quotient in their big up-and-coming battle. She's going to be very important, and I find it interesting as, you know, we see Fubuki sort of talking to Mutsuki about the dream that this Admiral claims to have had of her, and I kind of sat back and was like, yeah, he probably tells that to all the girls, you know. But I mean, this whole dream sequence about how integral she is, and she's sharing her love for him and all this stuff, how much of that was the Admiral's actual dream and how much of it was Fubuki's sort of, you know, that's what she's making up in her own mind it amounted to. I don't know. But it's almost like a great soliloquy for the whole aspect and aesthetic of the series. We have Fubuki in that main character role, so it's like she is going to be the one who is going to sort of amount to the most by the end of the series, and all throughout. You know, she's the character who has had the most growth and such like that. But I mean, the interaction between she and Mutsuki was really the highlight of this episode for me, because it's calling back to Kisaragi, who, you know, was killed in battle, and it's something that was very momentous in the lives of these two characters. It strengthened their relationship, brought them closer, and Mutsuki is heartbroken by just how hard Fubuki is pushing herself all throughout this episode. She's fearing the loss of her friend. I mean, there's this one point where they're sent out on recon, and, you know, basically Nagato is fearing that if they run into the enemy, and, you know, all the characters really in this recon outfit are sort of worrying about running into, of course, the Abyssals, and they end up running into them. And Fubuki is just like, again, obsessed with the idea of, if I attack, if I can take some of these guys out, this will be a key component to my leveling up. And she risks her own well-being. She risks her life. And for a minute there, the way they edit the sequence, you know, toward the end, when that last Abyssal shot fires at her, I mean, this could have been it, you know, for Fubuki in that moment. And then, of course, we follow up with her coming to in sort of where they get the repairs done and the bath works and everything. And, of course, Mutsuki jumps in fully clothed to the water, just so relieved that she's all right, but also skating the edges of being so condemning and fearful and tearful, because her best friend is risking her own well-being and her life, as I say. That, to me, was the utmost level of compelling in this episode, to see Fubuki so obsessed and the lengths to which she would go, but then the straining in the relationship of her best friend in this entire framework, because essentially of what Yudachi had achieved, you know, feeling like sort of responsible and wanting to, as Fubuki tells Mutsuki, you know, there's that great poignant moment on the hillside where she first met the Admiral when she first arrived in the Naval District. She's telling Mutsuki about I want to be able to service someone. I want to be a help to someone. And she doesn't even necessarily perceive that she's already kind of done that for some of the girls. I mean, Yudachi being a perfect example. It was Fubuki's example being set that made Yudachi put all that effort in and eventually got her upgrade and such like that. But Fubuki wants to take it a step further, and that's really what this episode's about. And her explaining this to Mutsuki, you can see that Mutsuki understands. But at the same time, it's still kind of killing her because of the whole Kisaragi effect. They both lost someone, and they both felt the ramifications of that, and Mutsuki doesn't want to lose her best friend. I love that sort of, not overly romantic, whatever you want to call it. They hold hands kind of at the end of that scene, and basically Fubuki has told Mutsuki, I won't leave you. And I think, based on how the series has unfolded, it remains to be seen who's going to live and die by the end of the series, depending on this big penultimate battle we're building to. But by the end, of course, we see that because of this training, you have some interesting dialogue between Akagi and Kaga. Kagi's talking about the Admiral had told her to choose her own escort, and I don't know if this actually means, in general, because we're always seeing, Akagi and Kaga together, or specifically for this penultimate battle that is up and coming, which again is the focus by the tail end of the episode, because it seems to play into the importance of Fubuki as seen through the eyes of the Admiral. And you basically have Akagi and Kaga, Akagi makes the sort of overture to Fubuki in this episode. Will you be my escort? Will you be my protector in this upcoming penultimate battle, to keep using that term? And we see Kaga is not having it, or at least that's the impression I get. She's like, I'm going to put you to the test, to the absolute limits before I ever sign off on you protecting Akagi. And they do that through the course of this, just again and again and again, rigmarole of firing the planes at Fubuki, and she has to shoot them down, is totally getting wasted and brought down by this. And then, of course, you have Mutsuki and Yudachi coming and cheering her on and watching, semi in horror, but semi also being cheerleaders for her. By the end of this, that is what brings about this leveling up glow in Fubuki. And she does have her, sort of upgrade, her changeover. And again, that's something that she doesn't change physically that much, which was something that was brought to my attention by several of you guys in comments and videos previous and such. So I was prepared for that. I knew that was coming, that she wasn't actually going to have such a dramatic, drastic appearance change, kind of like Yudachi. You can still tell Yudachi is Yudachi, but you can see that she looks much different than she did. And that wasn't going to be the case for Fubuki, and I wasn't at all disappointed. I thought, the little changes that there were noticeable enough to me to appreciate the fact that she achieved something, even though she herself was kind of like, that was it. But I think a lot of the audience who aren't going to have that idea in mind are going to be very much the same, echoing Fubuki's own sentiments. What the hell was the point? And like I say, the idea that Fubuki is going to be so integral to this penultimate battle that is up and coming. Nagato appreciates this. She's passing down sort of thanks to Akagi for being integral, a role in basically having Fubuki level up. And Akagi's basically saying, well, no, it's something I wanted too. I actually really, think highly of Fubuki and what she's capable of. And I guess she's feeling like out of everyone, if not Kaga, right to her, left, Fubuki is the one she wants as her protector, as her escort in this battle. And, the whole sort of beeline story in the episode was, where is this particular stronghold that the Admiral has in his record books as being the one they have to go after? And finally, by the end, Nagato figures, okay, this is the one. They sort of pinpoint one that she feels is the one the Admiral must have down as a sort of code reference. It doesn't match up with the actual known names of these zones and everything like that. And I just, for all intents and purposes, enjoyed this episode. Seeing Fubuki, how, adamant and how obsessive she was at reaching that level of upgrade, how much it was affecting her, best friend, Mutsuki, and, the strengthening of the ties between them and the promise of, Fubuki not leaving her and all this stuff. It really moved me, and sort of that whole testing sequence toward the end between Akagi, Kaga, and Fubuki. The music was really intense in that sequence, and I didn't know quite how it was going to play out. I very much assumed Fubuki would upgrade by the end of the episode, but I mean, they really bring an intensity to that sequence, at least for me watching, where it was kind of like it could go any which way, because we're seeing Fubuki lose time and time again. Is she going to achieve, was my question. And then, of course, by the end, when she does, when she has that success, it's somewhat comedic that she's not as impressed with it, with all the work she put into it. But at the same time, it's very satisfying, at least to me, to see her having achieved this thing she so, heart-wrenchingly for some and sort of expressive and positive for others. She finally achieved that goal. And the idea that the next 2 episodes are probably going to focus, as a finale, probably a 2-part finale, if there are in fact 12 episodes, which is what I've been led to believe, is going to focus on this final humongous battle. I mean, it's just ramped me up, and I'm at the edge of my seat to see where we're going to go from here. So otherwise, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of episode 10 of Kantai Collection KanColle, if you were as impressed with it as I was, if it fell flat for you, if you didn't really find much value in the story and the focus and everything like that. Were you let down by the upgrade, air quotes, of Fubuki by the end of the episode? And or were you, satisfied with it by the end? And are you now primed to see where we go in the finale of this series, as I am? So yeah, anything goes in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys and communicating back and forth with you guys. And otherwise, I hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.